Regional Voices of Wartime, Ukraine, presented by Ukrainian Crisis Media Center.
We must hurry to live. Written by Anna Murlikina.
This is the story of 65-year-old Anatoliy Voloshyn from Mariupol, who survived a serious injury, captivity, and ultimately decided to marry. He came to God in 1994 and enlisted in the army in 2022. Anatoli faced a difficult question: can a true believer kill, even if it means defending his country? Anatoli later put it this way: "It was a challenge for me, a difficult question for which I had no clear answer. But for myself I decided evil must be stopped." This evil had a profoundly painful impact on Anatoly's life. A shell exploded directly in front of him, nearly killing him. He endures unending pain when he thinks about his family, scattered across the front lines. But he survives and even plans a wedding. An ordinary man from an ordinary city facing an extraordinary fate.
Anatoli was born beyond the Ural Mountains. At 5, his parents relocated to Ukraine, where he grew up, studied, married, and raised 4 children in Mariupol. He worked hard his entire life. As a bulldozer operator, he spent 12 hours alone, surrounded by rocks, an aspect he considers the hardest part of his job. 12 hours of continuous thinking is difficult. The bulldozer works over stones and ditches, so you're constantly on edge. But you might not believe it. This is creative work. Anatoli smiles as he says, "I thought I was working as a landscape designer, moving mountains with the power of a bulldozer and faith. In the Soviet Union, we lived like everyone else. Being the same was the norm. In the 1990s, we gained freedom and an appreciation for its value. It was a dramatic change. Freedom gave us the ability to choose," Anatoli reflects. He chose to be free. He spent over 20 years at Azovstal and the Ilyich Iron and Steel Works in Mariupol. A factory is like a slavery. You get sucked in, lose yourself, your will. People work until they are exhausted and underpaid. Many have never even left Donetsk Oblast, let alone the country. You stay stuck and don't realize how quickly life is passing. After 24 years, I suddenly asked myself, what am I doing here? And I quit. I became a freelancer, worked in Poland and briefly in Russia, and traveled. I felt like a free man, he says. On February 24, 2022, he realized that the neighboring country intended to take away his freedom. Anatoli couldn't sleep that night, so he watched the news seeing footage of Russian military convoys crossing the border into Ukraine. Soon after, explosions were heard. Russia began shelling Mariupol. And then silence. I thought we were already captured, which is why everything was quiet. I decided I needed to go to the military recruitment center right away, he recalls. He was there the next morning. There was a queue outside the recruitment office. An officer approached asking if any Territorial Defense Forces, TDF, members were present. Although not affiliated with the TDF, Anatoli thought of himself as a soldier. "Perhaps I'm from the TDF," he replied and was led inside. They dressed him in military uniform, gave him the text of the oath, and handed him a gun. That's how his war started. The TDF unit was initially stationed at Azovstal administrative building, but quickly deteriorated and relocated to a site near Veselka Park. A soldier from the Azov regiment came looking for excavators to dig fortifications, he recounts. I said I was a bulldozer operator and with some training could work an excavator. But the officer told me there was no time for training. I needed to start right away. He was overjoyed to be behind an excavator instead of a gun, feeling he could help his country without conflicting with his beliefs. On March 1st, the military acquired 3 excavators from the city's water services, and Anatoli began digging trenches on Mariupol's eastern outskirts, building caponniers for armored vehicles amidst loud explosions. On March 2nd, the Russians blew up all generating units supplying power to Mariupol, leaving the city in darkness. They had to dig blindly at night. Anatoli claims a third sense helped them. In the dark, your senses heighten. Some gut feeling kicks in, he says. On March 14th, he was sent to retrieve a night vision device from Azovstal central entrance. A shell exploded in front of their vehicle, seriously injuring him. A fragment missed his heart by a centimeter, piercing his chest. Our car could explode at any time. I was afraid I'd burn alive because the doors were jammed. I can't remember how I got out. My abdomen was cut open. We were taken to a military hospital. After surgery, on March 15th, the Russians dropped an aerial bomb near our ward. Nurses said, "I'm sorry, but there is no one to carry you to the basement. You must go yourself." So I got up with my recently operated stomach and walked to the basement. The following day, he was transferred to Azovstal, where he continued his service at the Territorial Defense Headquarters. The Russians bombed relentlessly. Anatoli vividly recalls the fear lying under a massive sewer pipe, praying it wouldn't burst. I knew where I'd end up if something happened. But the young man beside me, hell is where we were, he says. On May 16th, they were ordered to surrender. He was captured in the Luhansk region. Compared to other prisons, he was spared the worst abuse, though stripped naked, searched, and subjected to propaganda on Russian television. However, they received 3 meals a day and a bed linen. On March 7, 2023, Anatoli was added to the exchange lists. His joy was tempered by sadness for the young men with wives and children left behind. "I have already lived. I'm 65. I raised children and traveled. But those young men, it's unfair," he says. Now he is in rehab, preparing for another surgery, but remains focused on living fully. Anatoli's wedding is scheduled for June. Amidst war, at 65, he asked Victoria from Lutsk to marry him. They had met through friends. We began writing and calling each other. I told her we didn't have time for prolonged courtships. The war is ongoing. No one knows what tomorrow holds. So we must hurry to live. Victoria agreed. We'll show that East and West are united. He smiles. Now, more than ever, he is certain. We should hold on to people, not things.
Supported by the United States Embassy in Ukraine. The views of the authors do not necessarily reflect the official position of the United States government.